I do not belong here anymore, Laura whispered as she lifted the small suitcase from the hallway floor, the rain tapping lightly against the front windows and casting a rhythm across the room that mirrored the thumping of Marcus Bennett's heart. In the dim light of the entryway, he stood silently, 3 children huddled behind him, faces pale and wide-eyed, not fully understanding that the life they had known was shifting irreversibly, and that the woman they called mother was choosing a future that no longer included them. Marcus's hands rested lightly on the shoulders of Noah, Grace, and Lily, feeling the warmth of their small bodies, but knowing that this moment, this quiet departure, would mark the beginning of 15 years of learning, endurance, and rebuilding without complaint or resentment, teaching them resilience without needing to utter a single word of anger. Outside, the sound of tires on wet pavement grew fainter, and Marcus turned to face the empty hall. The coat of Lily still half hung on the hook, Grace's scarf draped over the banister, Noah's shoes left untied by the door, each small detail a testament to the domestic life abruptly interrupted, a life now held together solely by him and the love he bore his children. He walked over to the dining table, where the dinner plates from the previous night had yet to be cleared, and began methodically stacking and washing them, moving with a precision born from necessity, knowing that the little tasks, when done carefully and consistently, could sustain a home and nurture a sense of security even when the foundation had been shaken by abandonment. He checked homework assignments spread across the counter, helped Lily organize her schoolbooks, and guided Grace through a simple drawing exercise that had once been their shared evening ritual, all while maintaining a calm exterior that belied the quiet ache in his chest, the sting of betrayal tempered by the knowledge that children require stability above all else. Marcus prepared breakfast for the children with methodical care, monitoring each step as Noah attempted to butter his toast. Grace poured her own milk carefully, and Lily, still clinging to her father's side, watched every motion with a mix of confusion and trust, learning in real time that resilience could be modeled in silence, and that love, though shaken, could endure without drama. He sat briefly at the kitchen counter, counting change for the week's groceries, and made a quick mental checklist of tasks that needed attention. Phone calls to teachers, checking bank accounts, scheduling repairs on the leaky roof. Each obligation noted with meticulous attention, reinforcing the concept that continuity and responsibility could not be abandoned even when the person responsible for guidance had chosen another path. As morning light filtered through the wet windows, Marcus called the children together, assigning small chores, offering quiet encouragement, and reinforcing routines, providing structure that would anchor them to a sense of normalcy. And in that rhythm of domestic responsibility and tender oversight, he silently vowed that the absence of their mother would not define their lives. The day unfolded with simple victories. Homework completed without tears, chores managed with cooperation, breakfast plates cleared, the house maintained, and laughter, a soft, hesitant laughter, returning to the dining room as Noah successfully solved a math problem. Grace completed her drawing, and Lily helped set the table for lunch, each act a small assertion that the family, though fractured, could continue, guided by the steadfast presence of a father who had learned to navigate both heartbreak and hope with unwavering resolve. The morning after Laura left was heavy but alive with quiet determination as Marcus Bennett moved through the house with precise steps, making sure every detail of the children's lives was attended to. He brewed oatmeal for Noah, Grace, and Lily, arranging their bowls with careful symmetry and checking the temperature of the milk for Lily, who still lingered by the counter, eyes wide with lingering confusion about her mother's sudden departure. He guided Grace in tying her shoelaces, steadying her hands with a patience that masked the ache in his chest, while Noah, tall for his age, attempted to fold the napkins for breakfast with the pride of someone stepping into small responsibility. And Marcus watched each movement, reinforcing that despite the absence of their mother, order and care would not falter in their home. After breakfast, he gathered the children in the living room, reading aloud from a children's book that Grace had chosen, using the story to explain lessons about honesty, resilience, and self-reliance in ways they could grasp. And when Lily's eyes wandered toward the front door, he gently reminded her that home was not just a place, but the people who made it safe, quietly instilling reassurance. the small rituals of the day, feeding pets, organizing school bags, checking the mailbox, and tidying rooms, became exercises in maintaining normalcy, and Marcus approached each task with a mix of focus and subtle tenderness, speaking softly to Noah about mathematics and problem-solving, helping Grace arrange her art supplies to encourage her creativity, and assisting Lily in learning simple chores that made her feel useful and capable, showing through action that life could continue even when the world seemed to shift beneath them. By mid-morning, Marcus was on a call arranging additional work to supplement income, negotiating with measured calm, ensuring that the financial stability of the household was not compromised while still managing to check in on each child's progress, noting quietly who needed encouragement and who could take on more responsibility, and guiding them all with the kind of patience and consistency that slowly reinforced confidence and self-sufficiency. As the day progressed, he introduced small, light-hearted moments, tickling Grace when she overreacted to a spilled cup of juice, telling Noah a quick joke that made Lily laugh softly, and watching them interact with one another, building bonds that had been strained by loss, illustrating that love and presence could compensate for absence while forming stronger, resilient connections. The afternoon brought homework sessions where Marcus sat with Noah on his algebra problems, gently guiding him through solutions without providing answers outright, while Grace sketched landscapes inspired by the living room view, and Lily practiced reading aloud, her voice growing steadier as Marcus offered encouraging corrections and praise, balancing discipline with warmth in a way that left them learning and thriving. The evening approached with Marcus preparing a simple dinner, allowing each child to contribute a small task, such as setting the table or washing vegetables, reinforcing teamwork and family cohesion. And as they ate, conversation flowed in measured tones, with Marcus listening intently to their thoughts, questions, and observations, fostering trust and communication that had been shaken by the previous night's upheaval. By bedtime, Marcus tucked each child in, offering brief stories, gentle reminders, and quiet assurances that despite the absence of their mother, they were secure, loved, and capable, instilling a sense of stability that would carry them through the coming days, weeks, and years. And as he finally sat alone in the dim light of the living room, he allowed himself a single deep breath, recognizing that the work of rebuilding was only beginning, but confident that their foundation had been preserved through care, patience, and unwavering presence. Marcus sat at the kitchen table late in the evening, reflecting quietly on the chain of decisions that had led to this moment, remembering the early days of marriage when Laura's laughter had filled the halls and the house had seemed alive, before the allure of Derek Lawson and a life of superficial glamour had pulled her away. He thought of the nights he had stayed awake comforting Lily when she cried for a mother who was gone, the mornings he had helped Noah button his shirt for school, and the afternoons spent teaching Grace how to manage her emotions while balancing homework and household chores, each memory reinforcing his determination to protect the children and create stability from the chaos left behind. While Laura chased fleeting excitement, Marcus discovered the strength in routine, learning to juggle work, parenting, and home management, mastering the art of patience as he guided the children through small triumphs, instilling responsibility and resilience through simple tasks like folding laundry, preparing meals, and overseeing homework, all of which became quiet affirmations of love and presence in the absence of their mother. He recalled how he had managed his own heartbreak, transforming it into motivation to provide the children with experiences Laura had chosen to abandon, taking them to the park, helping with science projects, attending school performances, and celebrating birthdays, all while modeling calm and thoughtful decision-making, demonstrating that leadership and care could exist without authority granted by another person. As Marcus prepared dinner, he reflected on the subtle ways he had nurtured independence in his children, allowing Noah to learn to plan for weekly expenses, guiding Grace in creative projects that required problem-solving, and encouraging Lily to voice her thoughts and opinions during family discussions, teaching them that even in a household missing one parent, cohesion, empathy, and growth were possible, and that emotional security could be cultivated through consistent, patient guidance. The house, once quiet and tense after Laura's departure, now hummed with the low energy of learning and shared responsibility, each child contributing in their own way, and Marcus observed how small successes built upon each other, reinforcing confidence, strengthening bonds, and teaching the family that stability and accomplishment could arise from perseverance and careful attention to daily life. He thought about the contrast between past and present, the emptiness left by Laura's absence, and the sense of purpose he had discovered in filling the gaps. Noticing how the children's laughter and quiet discussions during chores and homework now carried a sense of accomplishment and belonging, a reflection of his unwavering dedication and the emotional architecture he had carefully constructed over time. As he cleared the dinner dishes and tucked in the children for the night, Marcus felt the deep satisfaction of knowing that while the house was not complete without their mother, the family had grown stronger, more capable, and more united, learning to thrive through the consistency, patience, and steadfast love he provided, setting a foundation that would carry them forward. Teaching the children that resilience and care could flourish even in the absence of the one who had initially left them. Marcus did not rebuild the family with grand speeches or promises too large for tired children to believe. He rebuilt it with alarm clocks, packed lunches, permission slips, clean socks, and the kind of steady presence that turns survival into a home. The first year after Laura left taught him that grief does not leave all at once. It hides in ordinary places. It waits in the empty chair at the dinner table, in the second coffee mug he stopped reaching for, in the school form that asked for mother's contact information and left his pen hovering over the page. He learned to keep moving anyway. At 5:30 each morning, before the sun touched the kitchen windows, Marcus stood over the stove making scrambled eggs while a radio played softly by the sink. Noah came down first, trying to look older than he was, backpack already on one shoulder, pretending he did not need help. Grace followed with her hair half-brushed, holding a sketchbook to her chest like a shield. Lily came last, sleepy and small, asking questions that became softer as the months passed. Marcus answered what he could and held the rest behind his teeth. A father learns quickly which truths are too heavy for breakfast. He worked days at a restoration crew, sanding old floors, repairing porch rails, learning how neglected houses could be made beautiful again if someone had patience, tools, and enough respect for what remained. At night, after the children slept, he studied construction management at the kitchen table, laptop glowing beside unpaid bills, his hands still rough from the day. He did not study because he wanted to impress anyone. He studied because 3 children were sleeping down the hall, and the future did not build itself. There were nights when Lily had a fever, and he sat in the hallway outside her room until dawn, one ear tuned to her breathing. There were afternoons when Grace came home silent because another girl had asked why her mother never attended school events, and Marcus sat beside her on the back steps until the silence felt less lonely. There were Saturdays when Noah refused to play soccer because he said someone needed to help around the house, and Marcus looked at his son carrying a laundry basket too big for his arms and felt pride mixed with a sadness he never let show. "You are allowed to be a kid," he told him. Noah nodded, but Marcus could see the boy had already learned too much. So Marcus created rules that sounded simple but carried the weight of a promise. Nobody skipped dinner unless work or school made it impossible. Nobody went to bed believing they were a burden. Nobody had to earn love by being useful. Every Friday night, no matter how exhausted he was, he made pancakes for dinner because Lily had once said breakfast food made the house feel happy. Every birthday got candles, even when money was tight. Every school performance had him in the audience, sitting near the aisle in his work boots, clapping like the room belonged to his child. Slowly, the house changed. The walls got fresh paint. The roof stopped leaking. Grace's drawings filled the hallway. Noah's trophies lined a shelf Marcus built from scrap wood. Lily's spelling certificates covered the refrigerator. The absence did not disappear, but it lost its power to define them. Marcus never told the children Laura was a villain. He never needed to. He simply showed them what staying looked like, day after day, until staying became the language they trusted most. 15 years passed not like a clean jump in time, but like weather slowly shaping stone. The house that once smelled of rain, unpaid bills, and quiet uncertainty now carried the warmth of coffee, polished wood, fresh paint, and Sunday dinners that filled every room with voices. Marcus Bennett had built more than a career. He had built a place where the past could not keep walking through the front door without permission. Bennett restoration started with one old porch on the east side of town, a toolbox in the back of Marcus's pickup, and a client who paid him in 2 installments because that was all she could manage. Marcus took the job anyway. He sanded every rail by hand, matched the original trim, and left that porch looking like history had been treated with respect. One neighbor saw it, then another. Within 5 years, he had a crew. Within 10, he had a waiting list. By the 15th year, his company restored historic homes, old churches, family farms, and downtown storefronts across 3 counties, and people spoke his name with the kind of respect that does not come from luck. It comes from showing up. That evening, the old Bennett house glowed against the soft blue dusk, no longer tired, no longer patched together out of necessity, but strong, carefully restored, and alive. Inside, Marcus stood at the stove stirring gravy while Noah leaned against the counter in a white dress shirt, reading a legal brief on his phone with the calm focus of a young attorney who had learned early that facts mattered more than noise. Grace arrived next, carrying fabric samples and laughing as she kicked off her shoes by the door, her design studio logo printed on a canvas tote that looked too elegant for the muddy porch. Lily came home last, still wearing her hospital badge clipped to her coat, exhausted from clinical rounds, but smiling the moment she smelled dinner. Marcus looked at them one by one and felt the old ache move through him, not as pain this time, but as proof. They had grown. They had become people with their own keys, their own dreams, their own voices. They were not the broken children Laura had left behind. They were the answer to every night Marcus had wondered if he was enough. The dining room table was set with real plates now, not mismatched ones from thrift stores. A framed newspaper article about Bennett restoration hung near the hallway, though Marcus still found it embarrassing and had tried twice to move it to his office. Grace had put it back both times. Tonight, they were celebrating the largest contract Marcus had ever signed, a full restoration of the old Whitcomb Hotel downtown, a project big enough to put his company on the map beyond the state line. Noah raised a glass of iced tea and said, to Dad, who still pretends he does not know he is impressive. Grace laughed. Lily touched Marcus's arm and said, you taught us what staying looks like. For a moment, Marcus could not answer. He looked down at the table, at the gravy boat with the chipped handle, at the candle Grace had lit, at Noah's folded sleeves, at Lily's tired eyes, and he thought of another night in that same house, when 3 children had looked to him for an explanation he did not have. 15 years later, the explanation sat around his table, alive and whole. Then the doorbell rang. Not sharp, not dramatic, just one ordinary chime cutting through the warmth of the room. Marcus lifted his head. Noah stopped moving first. Grace's smile faded. Lily's hand tightened around her napkin. Something in Marcus knew before he reached the hallway. Some sounds do not belong to the present. They return carrying the past with wet shoes and unfinished sentences. He opened the door, and Laura Bennett stood on the porch, older, thinner, rain shining on her coat, one small suitcase beside her feet. Behind Marcus, the house was warm. In front of him, the woman who had left it 15 years ago looked at him as if she had finally discovered what she had thrown away. For a long second, Marcus did not speak, because the woman standing on his porch looked both familiar and impossible, like a photograph left too long in the sun. Laura's hair was damp from the rain. Her coat pulled tight around her shoulders, one hand resting on the handle of a suitcase that looked too small to carry 15 years of absence. The porch light softened the lines on her face, but it could not hide the exhaustion in her eyes or the uncertainty in the way she held herself. She looked past Marcus into the warm dining room, where candles still burned on the table and the children she had once left were now adults standing in the hallway behind him. Her mouth trembled before she managed to speak. Marcus, she said, and his name sounded strange in her voice, as if she had borrowed it from a life she had abandoned. Marcus kept one hand on the doorframe, not blocking her, not welcoming her, just steadying the moment before it tipped into something none of them could take back. Laura, he said, nothing more. Her eyes moved over him slowly, taking in the gray at his temples, the clean button-down shirt, the quiet strength in his shoulders, the home behind him that no longer looked like something barely surviving. She had expected anger, maybe. She had expected questions. What she found was worse for her. She found peace. I did not know where else to go, she said. Rain slid from the edge of the porch roof behind her, tapping into the flower bed Marcus had built the summer Grace graduated college. Inside the house, no one moved. Noah stood first in the hallway, jaw still, one hand at his side, as if he were back in a courtroom listening for the truth beneath a careful statement. Grace stood beside him, arms folded around herself, her face unreadable. Lily remained closest to the dining room, eyes bright, lips pressed together, looking at the mother she had once waited for at windows until waiting became too heavy for a child. Marcus heard all of them breathing. That sound mattered more than Laura's words. Derek is gone, Laura continued, her voice lower now. Things fell apart. I made mistakes. I thought I could start over, but I lost more than I understood. Marcus did not react to Derek's name. Years ago, that name had been a door slamming in his chest. Now it was just a sound from another room. Laura swallowed and looked past him again. I need to see the kids. At that, the house changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but something tightened in the air. Noah stepped forward before Marcus could answer. He was not the boy with untied shoes anymore. He was a grown man in a pressed shirt, eyes steady, voice calm enough to make the words land harder. We are not kids, he said. Laura's face shifted, caught between hope and embarrassment. Noah, she whispered. His name broke differently than Marcus's had, carrying the weight of birthdays missed, school plays missed, late-night fevers missed, every ordinary day that had become extraordinary because she was not there. Grace stepped into the light next. You came on the night Dad signed the Whitcomb contract, she said, not accusing, just observing. Funny timing. Laura looked confused. I did not know. Grace gave a small nod. That was always the problem. Lily finally moved, slow and careful, as if crossing the hallway meant crossing 15 years. She stopped beside Marcus, her hospital badge still clipped to her coat, and looked at Laura with a tenderness that had survived but changed shape. I used to keep your scarf under my pillow, Lily said. I thought if I remembered your smell, you would remember us. Laura covered her mouth, but Marcus did not look away from his daughter. This was not his moment to manage. He had spent 15 years protecting them from the storm. Tonight, he had to trust the strength that protection had built. Laura took one small step toward the threshold, then stopped when Marcus's posture did not change. Please, she said. I am still their mother. Marcus looked at her then, calm and tired and completely awake. Being a mother is not a title you return to when the world outside gets cold, he said. The words did not rise. They did not need to. Laura looked into the house, at the family she had left behind, and for the first time, she seemed to understand that the door had opened, but the past had not. Laura stood at the threshold with rain shining on her coat, looking at three adults who carried her face in small ways, but none of her dependents. Noah was the first to step fully into the entryway. He had Marcus's stillness now, the kind that did not ask for permission to hold a room. Laura looked at him like she was trying to fit the tall man in front of her over the memory of a little boy in dinosaur pajamas. You grew up so much, she said, and the sentence landed badly because growing up was exactly what she had missed. Noah's expression did not change. That happens in 15 years. No anger, no performance, just fact. Laura's fingers tightened around the suitcase handle. I know I hurt you. Noah gave a small nod. You left before you could know what hurt looked like afterward. Behind him, Grace moved closer to the hallway wall where framed photographs climbed in neat rows. Marcus had hung them himself, every graduation, every school award, every awkward birthday smile with candles reflecting in their eyes. Grace reached up and touched one frame, a photo from her senior art show. Do you know what my favorite color was when I was 10? She asked. Laura blinked, caught off guard. Grace's mouth tightened, but her voice stayed even. It was yellow. I painted everything yellow for almost a year because Dad told me the kitchen needed sunlight. Laura looked at the photograph, then at her daughter, and something like shame crossed her face. I am sorry, she whispered. Grace did not look satisfied. Sorry was too small for a childhood. Lily stepped beside Marcus, her hospital badge glinting under the porch light, and Laura's eyes went to her with the most fear. Maybe because Lily had been the youngest. Maybe because Laura remembered just enough to know the youngest had waited the longest. Lily, she said softly. Lily folded her hands in front of her, the way she did when giving difficult news to a patient's family, gentle but steady. I used to ask Dad if you would come for Thanksgiving. Then Christmas. Then my birthday. After a while, I stopped asking because I did not want him to have to answer. Marcus looked down for a moment, the words moving through him like an old ache pressed by careful fingers. Laura's eyes filled, but Lily continued. I do not hate you. I think that is what you were hoping to hear. But not hating you is not the same as letting you walk in and call this home. The rain seemed louder after that. Laura looked from one child to the next, searching for the soft place she imagined motherhood had preserved for her, but what she found was a family that had healed around the wound, not erased it. Noah crossed his arms. Why now? Laura inhaled, unsteady. I lost everything. Derek left. The apartment is gone. I thought maybe I could come back and make things right. Grace gave a quiet, almost sad laugh. You came back because your life fell apart, not because ours mattered. Laura flinched as if the truth had stepped too close. Marcus finally spoke, not to rescue Laura and not to soften the children, but to place a boundary around the moment. They owe you honesty. They do not owe you comfort. Laura looked at him then, really looked, and saw the man who had carried school lunches, hospital bills, scraped knees, college applications, heartbreaks, and late-night fears without turning any of it into a weapon. She had expected him to stand between her and the children. Instead, he stood beside them. That was worse. It meant they were not hiding behind him. They were choosing for themselves. Noah stepped back toward the dining room. Grace followed. Lily hesitated only once, then turned too. Laura remained on the porch with her suitcase, facing the warm house she had once left cold. Marcus kept the door open, but only halfway. It was not an invitation. It was mercy with a frame around it. Marcus closed the door gently, leaving Laura on the porch, and turned back to the warmth of the house, the dining room lights spilling across the polished table and reflecting in the faces of Noah, Grace, and Lily, who now carried the weight of 15 years of absence, but also the resilience that Marcus had nurtured. The children's eyes met his with a mix of curiosity, pride, and understanding, showing that they had grown into adults who could process their own emotions, make decisions for themselves, and recognize the stability that had been built around them. And in that moment, Marcus felt the quiet triumph of patient persistence, knowing that every scraped knee, sleepless night, and small household chore had contributed to this moment of integrity and self-sufficiency. Laura's presence outside remained a shadow. Her hope for reconciliation met not with anger or drama, but with the calm boundary Marcus had always maintained, illustrating that power in a family is not measured by fear or control, but by consistent care, clear expectations, and the freedom to choose. He guided the children through a calm evening routine, serving dinner, checking homework, and listening to stories of their days, while allowing space for reflection, laughter, and subtle reminders of lessons learned, reinforcing that the family could function and flourish independently of her involvement. Each child contributed to the meal and conversation, demonstrating responsibility and empathy, while Marcus observed quietly, noting how Noah approached tasks with leadership. Grace infused creativity and balance into interactions, and Lily offered nurturing gestures that connected everyone, forming a network of support that Laura had long since abandoned, and yet which had grown stronger in her absence. The house itself reflected the growth of its inhabitants, walls lined with photographs, projects, awards, and mementos that told the story of perseverance, adaptation, and love sustained through intentional action rather than the presence of a parent who had left, and Marcus's heart swelled with gratitude for the life they had built together, a life that demanded no external validation, only mutual respect and shared responsibility. Outside, the rain continued to fall softly, but the porch no longer felt like a threshold to loss. Instead, it marked the contrast between the past and the present, between abandonment and the self-sufficiency the family now embodied. Each child standing firmly in their own identity, aware of history but not defined by it, understanding the lessons of loyalty, patience, and measured response. Marcus reflected on how years of quiet determination, careful guidance, and steadfast presence had provided a framework in which the children could thrive, and he realized that the most significant victories in life are often unseen, measured not by confrontation but by resilience, growth, and the ability to create stability in the face of absence. As the evening progressed, the house hummed with calm energy, a space of warmth, learning, and mutual respect, illustrating that the family had not only survived, but had transformed the hardships of the past into the foundation for a strong, compassionate, and empowered unit, capable of navigating future challenges with clarity, confidence, and integrity. In this gentle conclusion of the day, Marcus allowed himself a moment of reflection, knowing that his choices had shaped lives, fostered independence, and created a home in which love and responsibility intertwined seamlessly, leaving Laura outside to confront the reality that 15 years of absence could not be erased and that the family she had once left now flourished without her, embodying strength, wisdom, and self-reliance. Laura walked away from the porch without a word, the suitcase rolling softly over the wet stone as Marcus closed the door behind her, leaving only the echo of rain and the warmth of a home rebuilt on love, patience, and unshakable presence. Inside, the children stood together, Noah's shoulders relaxed with quiet authority, Grace's eyes calm but thoughtful, and Lily's small hand resting against Marcus's arm, each of them a testament to 15 years of perseverance and care, showing that family is not defined by absence, but by the commitment to stand together through challenges and growth. Marcus guided them to the living room, where the photographs, awards, and small mementos lined the walls, silently narrating the story of resilience, responsibility, and love maintained over time. A narrative Laura had missed and could only now glimpse from outside the door. He encouraged conversation about the day, their accomplishments, and the lessons they had learned, allowing the children to reflect and speak with the confidence and clarity nurtured over years of shared effort and quiet guidance, emphasizing that respect, trust, and personal accountability formed the core of a family's strength. As they moved through evening routines, Marcus watched Noah explain a complex legal concept to his sisters, Grace share insights from her latest design project, and Lily describe her experiences at the hospital, each moment reinforcing the reality that these young adults had become thoughtful, capable individuals whose growth required no validation from Laura or anyone else. The home resonated with laughter, light conversation, and the subtle energy of mutual care, illustrating that the absence of a parent does not diminish the richness of familial bonds when they are actively nurtured, and that love can exist alongside boundaries and personal integrity. Marcus reflected on the quiet victories of the past 15 years, recognizing that his patience, consistency, and dedication had not only preserved the family but had allowed it to flourish beyond the shadows of abandonment, and that the children's confidence and empathy were evidence of lessons learned from both challenges and stability. He considered how viewers might feel witnessing this story, pondering the power of steadfast love, the consequences of choices, and the importance of resilience, asking themselves if they have recognized the strength within those who quietly uphold family and create environments where children can thrive despite adversity. As the night deepened, the household settled into calm routines, and Marcus allowed a brief moment to appreciate the home and family he had preserved, understanding that influence and authority are expressed through consistent care, moral guidance, and the fostering of independence, rather than through confrontation or control. And as the final light in the living room dimmed, he quietly invited viewers to consider the impact of patience, presence, and integrity in their own lives, reflecting on how choices echo across years, and suggested that if these stories of resilience, careful guidance, and emotional growth resonate, subscribing to the channel could offer more insights and narratives where quiet determination, love, and wisdom shape the lives of families in profound and meaningful ways.